All right, so let's talk about the TL role. And we'll start with defining what is a TL. And the answer is in the word itself, someone who is technical and someone who is a leader, you combine that and you get TL, right? Like, so obvious, come on. But seriously, I think there's some truth to it, there's some meaning to it. So we have someone who is a technical expert in a domain or a space, and they have the capability of leading a group of engineers and showing them direction. That does not sound like much, as most people would say that, because there's this famous joke that how many TLs does it take to change a light bulb? And people often say that you don't need a single one because you can just delegate, they'll delegate it, take the credit for it, right? But jokes aside, this is a great analogy that someone at Google told me once about what is the contribution of a TL, right? So let's start with this vaguely looking red dot circle type of thing. Your manager comes to you and they're like, hey, look, this is what I have this team of engineers. I don't know what I want exactly, but I have this vague set of requirements. Can you build me a product like this? And TL, as you are the TL now, right? Like, and you know that you have one engineer who is great at building rectangles, and you're like, okay, let me see how I can use them. Then you have these other two junior engineers. They're great at building triangles, and you put this together, and you're like, this is starting to look a little bit like that, the circle that we want. But perhaps what I need as a TL is to run around this in circles really fast so that, it seems like a circle. So I'll put all of this together, run around it in really fast time. So I'll put this together, I'll make it more concrete, and I'll make it look like what we really want. And, I'll fill in the rest by doing other tasks myself. So, in this analogy, what is TL's contribution? If you look at the output, it looks like this, right? And it's made up of contributions of others, very concrete contributions like coding and implementation, even like system design. So, what did a TL even do? And if I subtract the contribution of others, it starts appearing like this very fragmented, incomplete picture. So, is this what a TL is really doing? And the answer is yes. But why is this so important? And what did TL do in this? So TL has mainly done two things here. One is they defined the work for others. They assigned these triangles and these rectangles very concretely to a bunch of junior engineers that did not have to worry about the vagueness of the problem or how the pieces fit together. The TL also shapes the work of the others, meaning that it maintains quality. It gives, ideas on how to do something, like how to create this rectangle. What should be the size of this rectangle, for example, right? And these things are really valuable because if you were to put two triangles and one rectangle together, it would never look like a circle, right? And that's exactly, I would also say, how TL should communicate their contribution when it comes to performance reviews. But putting that aside, there's a natural question of, okay, how do TLs work with managers and what is the difference in roles and responsibilities? This is somewhat of a thing that, people kind of get confused about, and rightfully so. But simply, what I say is that managers figure out what to do and TLs figure out how to do it. But there's a big overlap between the responsibilities of managers and TLs, as you would see. So if you look at what to do, that means figuring out product strategy. What is the scope of our organization? How do we grow the organization? Defining OKRs and KPIs, hiring people to do that, making the org efficient by defining new processes, right? That's what managers do. Whereas completely on the other side, TLs are building technical designs and systems by executing on projects, coding, code reviews, unblocking other engineers. But there's this common part which managers and DLs both equally do, and depends on the situation and the project, but stakeholder management, DLs are interfacing with different functions in the company for sure. Strategic vision, TLs can set strategy for how the systems should evolve, but very strong TLs can also start going to product domain and ideating solutions and pursuing them. There's also the other aspect of personnel growth, meaning investing into the expertise that your teammates have. How can we grow more senior TLs? And, as that happens, the organization benefits all in all. So that's like kind of both what TLs and managers would like to do. So putting that aside, let's talk a little bit about why do we need TLs. We alluded to it a little bit. We need two rectangles and triangles put in a circle. But there's other reasons too. And I always talk about this situation where, I used to love to code. I mean, I still do. I was really good at coding. And when I work alone, I can build great products overnight, in a week. I'm so efficient, all right? But then they made me a TL and I can't code at all, right? That sounds like a very unintuitive thing to do. But there is a good reason behind that. So the example I use is, let's say you're in a team and you have your 4 teammates. You are the 10x coder. So you can lead yourself, you can work alone, build great products. But then, other people are also okay. And this is the total output of the team. Now, what your manager does is makes you a TL. So you can only code half the time. You're only producing half the output in terms of code. But what you have done as TL is you are providing code reviews to other engineers on the team. You are helping them be more efficient, and you are improving the quality of their work as well. So with this equation, we end up with an output which is less than what it was before, right? And that seems like a bad output. Come on, why are we doing this? But let's see what an effective TL does to the team's output. And an effective TL, they essentially replicate themselves, meaning that they have created copies of themselves. So other engineers are now 10x engineers. That's actually pretty hard to do. So sometimes what you may be able to do is improve the efficiency of other engineers by 50% or so. And don't get into what are the metrics of efficiency, but for the sake of argument, think of it as the total sum of output one can produce. And if I look at this, as a great TL, what you have done is you have increased the efficiency of others. You're coding half the time, but the net output is greater than what it was before. And that's what effective TLs do. They multiply themselves to increase team's output. So that's number one reason. The other reason is, how can we solve problems at scale? Inherently, building products for billions of users is a problem that needs hundreds of people to work together, right? Sometimes thousands of people to work together. It's not easy. So what humans did, this is getting a little philosophical. Humans as a species, one of the reasons why we have survived and thrived on Earth, in this ecosystem, is that we were able to coordinate at large scale. Now, this is, and I'm borrowing words directly from Yuval Noah Harari's book Sapiens, but a human can only coordinate directly with, at most, effectively, if you're talking about effective coordination, it's probably 10 people at most, 10, maybe 20, right? If you're a great, time manager and really good at communication, you can probably communicate with 25 people on a regular basis. But then how do thousands of people work together? And that's where the analogy that I use for the nerds is merge sort. So if you remember it as divide and conquer algorithm, where you take a problem, you break it down into smaller problems. So there is a function called split, which figures out how do I split the problem, and you do it until the sub problem becomes manageable by a single individual. Then you start merging the output of that individual using the merge function to solve the problem that you were trying to solve originally. And this split merge function, that's what essentially a TL does for a group of smaller engineers. And so you can imagine that, to your senior leadership, you can be their point of contact. They don't have to directly work with multiple engineers. And this is kind of obvious, but also not at the same time. But this is one other reason why we need TLs. So we discussed why do TLs exist with an analogy of creating a red circle. Then two more concrete reasons, which are multiplying the team's output and making it easy to coordinate across large groups. Let's talk about types of TLs a little bit in the next chapter.